Welcome to Foxboro Biz. My name is Shannon Sylvia, and in this segment we're going to be talking about water issues. The Department of Public Works and the Water and Sewer Commissioners are here with information on the current state of Foxboro's water as well as any future plans. The current water situation will be addressed, what's currently being done, and any future improvements. Joining us today is Department of Public Works Director Roger Hill, Water and Sewer Department Superintendent Bob Worthley, Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners Vice Chairperson Michael Stanton, and Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners Clerk Rich Pacella. Hi. I'd like to start out with a brief presentation of our current water infrastructure, and Bob will be telling us about our current water infrastructure.
Okay, the first slide is a picture of pumping station number 1, which is located off of Chestnut Street. This was the first station in Foxboro, and it was built in 1891. Next to the pumping station, there's a garage and it's an office area. We have our vehicles and backhoes there, and in the morning there are daily meetings that I have with the staff where we talk about what we're going to do that day. On the same property, we have a chemical feed control building. These buildings house the disinfection and corrosion control chemicals. The chlorine is used to neutralize bacteria, and pH adjustment reduces problems with corrosion. At the Witch Pond plant, this is one of our computer monitoring stations. The treatment plants and pumping stations are monitored to ensure water quality parameters are met. At the treatment plant and pump stations, there are sample lines that are used for specific water quality testing, such as iron, manganese, and chlorine. There are also online monitors which analyze the samples 24 hours a day. The filters at Witch Pond, as well as Oak Street when construction's completed, are controlled by what is known as a process logic controller. They are basically very rugged industrial computers. After the water is purified, it is pumped from the treatment plant to the customers and the water tanks by the use of electric pumps. Water is pumped from the wells, pre-treated, and then filtered in the large tanks. There are 3 filters. What you mostly see are the pipes and valves which serve several functions. This is a view of the electrical switchgear that powers the equipment. The treatment plants also have ultraviolet disinfection equipment which can further disinfect the water with light. This process is more effective than chlorine for some pathogens.
Thank you, Bob, very much. Now I'm going to ask some questions that I'm sure many of the residents of Foxboro are curious about. The first question is, why has there been brown water in sections of Foxboro?
I'll go ahead and take a stab at that. The brown water problem did not originate recently. It's been with us for a very long time. It's a combination of iron and manganese in the mains themselves, particulate iron and manganese, and in some of our unlined cast iron mains, it's rust from the walls of the pipe after years of limited flushing in the system. What caused it to be there? Like I say, it's been building up for years, but recently we had to take 3 major wells offline up at Oak Street because of the construction of the new plant, and we're rehabbing those 3 wells simultaneously. And that rerouted all the flow in the system and stirred up all the iron and manganese and the rust on the walls of the pipe, and it seems to have concentrated in a little triangle between North Street and let's say Cocasset Street. That's a fair place to describe it. And that pretty much will explain the reasons why the the rust is in, and the color is in the water.
Residents have been asking why this wasn't clearly communicated to them at the beginning.
Well, I think from the Commission's point of view, there was some expectation that there was going to be disruption when the wells were taken offline and subsequently a flushing program brought into effect. But the issue became is the magnitude for which the water was disrupted was not sought and was tough to get a grasp on until it was almost too little too late, and people were getting brown water very extensively, and there was no systematic reasoning to how it was happening. Some people would get it and wouldn't and get it again. Other people would get it on various parts of town, and time-wise, it didn't really make a rhyme or reason to how it was happening or why it was happening. One benefit was that as calls started coming in, the department was able to take in the information and gather, make a database, if you will, on what was going on and start to be able to assess the problem that way based on the information people were giving us. We've also, through this process, asked of residents that have come in for ideas of how, as a commission and a department, we could better communicate. Because once the issue was brought to our attention, there was communication put out there through the department, being the department website, the local newspaper, and even through that, notifying flushing, we found that a lot of residents weren't getting the information, and for that we have asked of residents coming in complaining of such an issue that they feel there was a lack of communication to give us some kind of idea of what would help us reach the community more efficiently. One idea we got that I found to be a very good idea was a resident mentioned utilizing the reverse 911 system. That through the department has been looked into with the police department to find out if that is a reality and we could utilize that system. So we have and will continue to ask of the residents of the town to bring forth any ideas they feel that as a department and a commission we can better communicate and get information out when issues do arise.
Do we know what has been done to fix this problem?
Well, so far what we've done, when we understood how fragile the system was, we regulated the pumping to make sure that equipment was started and stopped as infrequently as possible, which greatly helped. The other major thing we did is we put in a treatment change, and this is a different type of a chemical than we used before, which apparently has helped tremendously in the past 2 weeks.
And so this has worked to help to eliminate the brown water for you?
Yes.
Is flushing beneficial?
It's actually essential. Part of, and it is a double-edged sword, part of the problem is you have to flush to get the sediments out of the pipe, but while doing that, you will create a disruption. The challenge in Foxboro is the disruption's often in a different part of town than we're actually flushing.
When was the last flushing?
End of October, early November.
And when can we expect the next?
Probably mid-March to early April.
And with that, is that going to cause any disruption? Will residents notice it? And
yes, they will.
That will be heavily advertised before we do it. And we have to wait for fairly warm nights. We can't have freezing temperatures. One of the problems with flushing is you have to put out a lot of water to really flush the mains. And the only place you can discharge is out onto the street for the most part. There are some places where we can wash into woods, but it's seldom we can do that. So we have to wait for non-freezing, and that may be a month off, maybe a month and a half off. The other thing that has kind of held us up a little bit is We are currently having a hydraulic model of the system done. We didn't have one before, and that makes it difficult for us to do sequential flushing. That's where we start with one hydrant and go right down the street and clean out that main. And without the model, we can't predict where the effects of that are going to land. Once we get the model operating, which probably won't be until after we do the first major flushing, then we'll be able to much better predict where the problems might occur.
That's great. So this is what you have in plan for letting the residents know about the brown water, and ad in the paper, and any other ways?
I think we might even, if we're going to flush a given street, we might put some doorknob hangers on that street too.
We've also, through the commission and the department, have spoke about having a public forum, some kind of informational town meeting, if you will, to bring residents in and let them know where flushing will happen, when it's going to happen, and just sort of spell out some things they can expect, and hopefully also give them any points of contact that if issues do arise, we can get a better flow of communication.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about the new Oak Street plant that everybody's waiting for?
Well, the Oak Street plant is going to be very similar to the facility we have near the Plainville border, the Witch Pond. It's going to consist of 3 filters. It's going to take the water out of the ground. We're going to treat it, remove iron and manganese, and disinfect it. And then purified water will be entering the system.
When do we expect this to be ready?
We're told between June and August this summer.
Of this year, 2013? Yes. Great. And how do you think this is going to help the town and the water system?
By adding water that is free of the minerals, it'll be much cleaner, and it'll be of a more consistent quality than we're able to produce now.
So what do you see as the next steps in water?
Well, I believe every step is a good step to the ultimate goal, but unfortunately there is still a lot to do. As Bob mentioned, Oak Street will help to add yet one more filtered water treatment plant into the system, which now gives the town 2. The town still has other areas of water being pumped into the system that do not have filtration, that ultimately in the long run will need filtration. And then there's the whole issue with flushing of pipes. As Roger mentioned early on, the pipes are all contaminated for years and years of iron and manganese. That all needs to be taken out of the system. And flushing is one way, doing improvements to the pipelines in other ways. This is all stuff that will be required of the department to give a better system. And the process and the plan is to do all that, but it obviously isn't going to happen overnight. So I believe the expectation should be is that it's going to get better, but it's going to be a long process, and we're going to continue to work step by step to ultimately provide a cleaner and better water system.
The guy that's most responsible for the Witch Pond plant and the Oak Street plant, especially the Oak Street plant, is the guy in the middle here, and he was instrumental in getting the town to vote the funds to go ahead with Oak Street, and it's going to do a lot for the system. After that, we're going to start looking right away at Mechanic Street, Chestnut Street. We need to, and if we can get those 3 on, then I think we'll have a little breathing space, and then we can work on some of the other long-term problems in the system.
That's right.
Do you have anything to add?
I want to just recap a little, if I may.
Okay.
Going back to the funding for the Oak Street plant, dirty and brown water issues in the town of Foxboro is nothing new, and it hasn't been a secret. I think that's why it was easily recognizable for the people at town meeting to appropriate those funds. So, at least in the short run, you're going to have two sources of filtered water coming in without a lot of the other residual chemicals that the old system of sequestration used to use, which is a benefit, and you're going to have water coming from at least two directions. Now, that does lead into the flushing. A big part of the problem, it's frustrating, was that you would flush, but you were putting in a substandard product right back into the line. And, there was a residual over the years. As far as talking about this affected area, let me just say this, we missed it. We missed it. Bob missed it. Our consulting engineers missed it. No reasonable person had reason to believe just how fouled those distribution lines were. And so maybe we didn't do everything we could have. However, we're doing everything we can now. When this gets online, we will do our utmost best for constructive public notice. Like I say, everything from a doorknob hanger to sawhorses at the end of the street. That's been a big discussion amongst us as to what constitutes giving proper notice. And again, like Roger's saying, they're doing the modeling. We're going to put together a capital improvement plan that's, we're looking probably out to, 2035 or so before you would have technically enough money to incrementally make the improvements. So, that's it. The solace I guess we all get is at least, 80% of the system is working fine. And I know it's been a lot of the tough days and nights for Bob, and especially the ladies in our office who have really borne the brunt of this, and they deserve recognition. So, really that's it. There's no magic bullet here. Again, this has been going on. It wasn't a secret. The medicine has turned out to be almost, as bad as the disease here in the short run. So we're optimistic that, this plant will stay, Oak Street will stay on schedule. We'll get this up running and, through its, sea trials and really online in September. That's what I say. And that should go a long way. The other part of this is that given the complaints and the intense scrutiny that some of the distribution pipes in this affected area has given insight to the department also as to, how to attack the problem once they get a better water into the system. And it's going to go a long way as to what needs to be replaced, rehabilitated, and it'll help affect the plan going forward. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, I'd like to thank our Department of Public Works and Water and Sewer Department and the Water and Sewer Commissioners, our volunteers for all their time, and the Foxboro Cable Access for their time. And I'd also like to thank the Foxboro residents for taking the time to view this episode of Foxboro Biz.